Chapter 11, Part 2. Mrs. Carter had at last arranged Maya's piano lessons with Netta's father, Mr. Holtman. Maya went to his house before the dancing class while the twins were shopping with their mother, so she could enjoy it and not have to pretend that learning the piano was boring. If there was one thing the twins really hated, it was if Maya seemed to enjoy anything. Mr. Holtman came from Vienna and he was a first-class musician. He not only taught Maya the piano, he understood her need to learn the songs she heard everywhere, in the streets of Manaus, on the riverboats, in the huts of the workers. It's a very rich land for music, Brazil. Everything flows into everything else. In one song you can hear the rhythm of the Africans, the poetry of the Portuguese, and the sadness of the Indians, he told her. He promised to look at the songs she had written down, and he suggested too that she had singing lessons and train her voice, but this she wouldn't do. My mother was a singer. She was wonderful, and I don't want to try and copy her, said Maya. The other good thing which came out of her time with the Holtmans was Netta's friendship. The Austrian girl welcomed her wholeheartedly. She had a litter of kittens in a basket, a basset hound with soulful eyes, and a baby brother as fat as butter. Netta walked with her afterwards to the dancing class, and if Maya forgot to put on the gloomy face when she saw the twins, with her legs sticking out in the locker room, waiting to have their shoes on, she was in trouble. "What are you smirking about?" asked Beatrice now. "I suppose you're waiting for Sergei to ask you to dance." The twins' plan for getting rid of Maya were not going well. They had been to her room and picked out over her things, but Miss Minton had heard them, and since they themselves never went outdoors, it was very difficult to spy on Maya properly. The notice of the reward for the capture of Taverner's son was still on the hoardings, but time was running out. Mr. Lowe and Mr. Trapwood were supposed to be leaving on the Bishop in 3 days' time. Sergei did ask Maya to dance. Not only that, but he asked her to a party. "It's on Friday night. It's for Olga's birthday. I know it's very short notice, but my father has to go to Belém the next day, and we wanted him to be here." Maya hesitated. Friday night was the night Clovis was to hide in the museum. For her to be in Manaus, this would be perfect if she was to portray Clovis to the twins, but only if the twins were there as well. "I'd love to," she said, "but I don't think I can come without Beatrice and Gwendolyn. I'm sort of their guest. You know how it is." Sergei looked mulish. "They are horrible. I hate them. But if you won't come without them, I'll ask Olga." Olga also disliked the twins, but she too said that if Maya couldn't come without them, then she'd better bring them along. "If Miss Minton comes too, it ought to be all right," said Sergei. "She'll keep them in order, and she gets on well with Mademoiselle Lille, and there's no trouble about getting you home. My father will send you back in one of our boats." The Kaminskis were about one of the richest families in Manaus. Sergei's father, Count Kaminsky, owned huge plantations of rubber trees. He treated his workers well, and the money flowed in, not only from rubber, but for hardwoods and coffee and sugar cane. Maya had passed their house, a big mansion with pink walls and blue shutters, and a garden full of flowering trees. There couldn't be anywhere better for a party. If the twins were pleased to be invited, they didn't show it. Only Mrs. Carter's eyes gleamed. She hated the Russian family, but a count was a count, and who knew what might come out of it for her girls. Finn's dog was called Rob, but no one used his name much. He was somehow all dogs rolled into one, with his trust and intelligence and faithfulness, and though he could hunt his own food and steady the canoe by putting his weight in the right place, he understood that when humans were upset, one had to sit while they pulled his ears or buried their faces into one's backs, or even cried. A dog who will allow himself to be cried over is worth his weight in gold. He had been Bernard Taverner's dog, and now he was Finn's, and other people did not interest him. But he was always polite to Maya, and as she rubbed her back and said, I don't know how I'm going to get the twins to do what I want," he caught the worry in her voice and did not move away, though he had heard some interesting noises in the bushes behind the hut. "It's quite easy," said Clovis, and Maya looked up surprised, for Clovis was not usually a boy who found things easy. "It's just acting." "Yes, but I can't act," said Maya. "Anyone can act," said Clovis. "There are just a few tricks. Techniques, they're called, but they're just tricks, really." They had just finished afternoon tea in the hut, which was Clovis's favourite meal. But when it was cleared, he said, "Look, watch me." He went to the window of the hut and looked out, seeming to be interested in what he saw. Then he came back and sat down. After a while, he got up and did the same thing. And the third time, Maya got up and followed him to the window. "You see," said Clovis, "you go to that window twice. The third time, people will always follow you. It's the same when you're pretending to give someone the slip. But really, you don't want them to come after you. Don't pause and look around furtively, just keep changing your pace. Sometimes dawdle, sometimes run. So while Finn checked the list of things that Clovis would need for his night in the museum, Clovis coached Maya on how to act the part of someone with a guilty secret. Because they mustn't think that I want to betray Finn, she said. They know I wouldn't do that. They must think I've done it by mistake. Just before Fleur came to fetch Maya, Finn took her aside and took something out of the pocket of his trousers. Look, he said, and he held out a beautiful silver pocket watch on a long chain. He clicked it open and showed her the initials BT engraved inside. Your father's? She asked. Yes. He gave it to me on my last birthday. It was the only thing that he brought from Westwood. I feel like I ought to give it to Clovis. It would make them absolutely certain he was me. But your father wanted you to have it, said Maya. Yes, said Finn, looking stricken. But if it would help, he shook his head. Never mind. It's for me to decide. Then Flor's canoe came through the reeds, and Maya hugged Clovis and said goodbye. If everything went according to plan, Clovis would be on the boat the day after tomorrow. And it was hard leaving him. But I'll expect you'll come to England, won't you? Clovis said. He'd given her the address of his foster mother. I wish you were coming now, he said, his eyes filled with tears. As Finn helped Maya into the boat, he leant forward and whispered in her ears. Don't worry about Clovis, he said. I'll see he's all right. I won't let him get too scared, I promise. And Maya nodded and got into the canoe, and it was paddled away. That settles it, said Mr. Trapwood. If we're going back to the pension, we're going to pack. We're going to be on the Bishop for the first thing tomorrow. So Aubrey will have to send someone else out. Nothing is worth another day in this hellhole. Mr. Lowe did not answer. He had caught a fever and was laying in the bottom of the large canoe owned by the brothers of the São Gabriel mission, who had arranged for the Crows to be taken back to Manaus. His eyes were closed and he was wandering a little in his mind, mumbling about a boy with hair the colour of the belly of the golden toe which squatted on the lily leaves of the Mamari River. There had, of course, been no golden hair boys. There hadn't been any boys at all. What there had been was a leper colony run by the brothers of St. Patrick, a group of Irish missionaries to whom the Crows had been sent. They're good men, the brothers, a man said on the docks, what the man had told them as they set off on their last search for Taverner's son. They take in all sorts of strays, orphans, boys with no homes. If anyone knows where Taverner's lad might be, it'll be them. Then he'd spat cheerfully into the river because he was a crony of the chief of police and liked the idea of Mr. Lowe and Mr. Trapwood spending time with the brothers, who were very holy men indeed, and slept on the hard ground and ate porridge made from manioc roots and got up 4 times in the night to pray. The brothers' mission was on a swampy part of the river and very unhealthy, but the brothers only thought about God and helping their fellow men. They welcomed Mr. Trapwood and Mr. Lowe and said that they could look over the leper colony to see if they could find anyone who might turn out to be the boy they were looking for. They're a jolly lot, they're lepers, said Father Liam. People who have suffered don't have time to grumble. But the Crows, turning green, thought that there wouldn't be much point, even if there was a boy there the right age, so Aubrey probably wouldn't think that the boy who was a leper could manage Westwood. Later, a group of pilgrims arrived who had been walking on foot from the Andes and were on their way to a shrine from the Madeira River, and the brothers knelt and washed their feet. We know you'll be proud to share the sleeping hut with our friends here, they said to Mr. Lowe and Mr. Trapwood, and the Crows spent the night on the floor with 12 snoring, grunting men, and waked to find 2 large and hungry-looking vultures squatting in the doorway. By the time they returned to Manaus, the Crows were beaten men. They didn't care any longer about the Taverner's son or Sir Aubrey, or even the £100 bonus they had lost. All they cared about was getting onto the Bishop and steaming away as fast as it could be done.